Hey YouTube, big patch for Helldivers 2 just dropped. We're going to go through the patch notes and I'm going to give you my initial reactions after 2 days of playing. Hope you guys enjoy the video. Starting off, we have the armor change. If it's above 100 armor, I believe this is 100 and above, you get some damage resistance to headshots. It seems like it was 0%. Obviously, if you're below, you get, I believe it's 10 to 15% if you're in medium, and it goes up to 35 for heavy. This is initial reactions. I've seen this on Reddit going around. Doesn't seem like a big difference for wearing that heavy armor, but it's a good initial reaction to it. Going into the first weapon, we have the Exploding Crossbow. This is very much a side grade. Some people will like this change. Giving it more stagger does mean that it affects Devastators significantly more. So when you're using in those bot missions, you can kind of bully them more often. But for bugs, you'll probably notice that you're killing less bugs per explosive bolt. It's still a very good stealth weapon, as I've been told by people. I'm not really a stealth player, but I've been told by people. I think the changes for many will probably be positive, though, just because of the stagger. It makes it more usable in more situations. Quasar Cannon change. This is the way it should have been released. It's unfortunate that it wasn't released in this way because now people have gotten used to it having a 10-second recharge. Now it's 15. But I'll be honest, that 5 seconds doesn't make that big of a difference. Is it a difference? Yes. But it opens the door for the EAT and Recoilless and Spear to be used more often in anti-tank situations where Quasar isn't the only weapon you've been seeing. I'm sure many of you have been playing over the last couple weeks and you've been seeing the Quasar everywhere. People love using it, but it was too powerful. We want some more variety. It makes sense. The Adjudicator feels a lot better. I like the recoil reduction, and it does feel good to use in bug missions. Those 2 extra megs do make a very sizable difference. It does make sense they put it in the Assault Rifle class. But it now goes right up against the Liberator Penetrator. I believe the Adjudicator is just a better Liberator Penetrator overall. I'm sure there's going to be some preferences either way, but it's definitely an awkward situation for that weapon now. I am interested to see where it changes from there. I don't recommend it for bots. As far as I've been using it in Adjudicator and bot missions, I just cannot recommend using it. It's the full auto feature is nice, but I think you're just better off using another medium pen weapon like the Diligence Counter Sniper, which we're going to mention later on. Laser Cannon, solid across the board buff, just does more damage. The reduced damage versus large volume bodies, I haven't really noticed this anywhere. I did some testing versus Factory Striders. Seems to be the exact same damage to Factory Striders. Seem to be the exact same damage to Hulks. It possibly is a little bit more damage to the Charger Butt. I don't have conclusive evidence on that, but it did seem like it was a little bit longer on a Charger Butt. But, like, I don't know. It seems to be like just a straight buff across the board. Great job there, giving it a little more usage. Positive Punisher, many people really enjoying this change. They love the damage fall off on the explosion. It's just more consistent in its damage output, and the projectile speed makes it easier to use overall, especially in those bot missions where you're just bullying Devastators. Yes, like the other weapons, its total magazines went down in reserves, but you get more magazines at resupply. Just a balancing fix to make you need to go get more resupplies from time to time. It did kind of suck that you were getting so few mags on resupply, so, I mean, getting the full 8, all your reserves back, that's nice. Arc Blitzer is an amazing glow up for it. I could not, when I originally read the patch notes, I was like, okay, that sounds nice. You know, 50% fire rate increase. That sounds nice. Unfortunately, it's an inconsistent weapon, but you know, it didn't do that good at 30 or 45 rounds per minute. It is significantly better. Or sorry, it went from 30 to 45. It is significantly better at 45 rounds per minute. That 50% fire rate increase, it's not only an extremely fun weapon to use versus bugs, but it's honestly, because you can fire almost twice as much or 50% more, you're able to iron out the inconsistency issues of where sometimes it won't track. So highly recommend giving it a try. It's absolutely probably the star of this patch so far. With the Eruptor, a lot of people are quite negative on it, but I think it's pretty fair. Having 12 mags before, it was really rare to run out of ammo. You just didn't run out of ammo with it. You could spam it even with the animation cancel, and really rare to run out of ammo before you found a brick of ammo somewhere or a resupply. So I think that's fair overall. Going down to 6, it's supposed to be a very unique primary that is a support weapon. At the same time, it does a lot of things that a support weapon can do, like such as blowing up those bug holes and fabricators. It is unfortunate it lost some explosive damage, but you know, it still has that crazy shrapnel, which they might be changing fairly soon. There's been some rumbling from the devs that Reddit has been complaining about dying to their own shrapnel too much now, and they might be removing that shrapnel in the near future, which is unfortunate. The sickle change coming next, I'm going to be hard pressed to notice it for the most part. I feel like most people that use the sickle are attempting not to overheat their weapon. So losing the amount of the extra radiators in the background, I don't think you're going to really notice. It's still the best AR in the game, and there's no displacing that at the moment. The Scythe, solid change, but it still lacks that like potential damage of the sickle. The Scythe overheats too fast per heatsink, and it has a very bad sight in comparison to the sickle. I really hope that they look at just giving it a better sight and more fire time before it overheats. I think that would, you know, level it out a lot closer to the sickle. But here's hoping. No longer in troll tier, but I still hope that it gets more love in the future. The railgun change is a mixed bag. I am happy to see finally they're buffing the railgun up after they've buffed all of its competition and they've added new units that it's really bad against. But unfortunately, they also haven't buffed it against those new units at all. It still is like very bad at killing very bad at killing gunships, and it's very bad at killing factory striders, unfortunately. I don't know why it's like that. Other weapons that it competes against do just fine. But, you know, there are some positives out of it. The extra armor penetration in both safe mode has now allowed it to one-shot hulks in the eye in safe mode, which is nice. And then in the unsafe mode, it now does significantly more damage to the legs and the head. You can now consistently 2-tap in unsafe mode to remove the armor of a charge's leg, so you can primary down, or 3 unsafe mode shots to the head. It's around 70% or so. It doesn't need to be these crazy 80-90% unsafe mode railgun shots. Heavy machine gun, it's a nice change. I really appreciate it as someone who mostly doesn't use first person in the game. I appreciate third person crosshair. I do hope in the future that they still fix the first person crosshair, but nice to have. Diligence counter sniper feels way better in general. Bugs and bots. I love the ergonomics improvement. I would say it's very much on par with the Dominator. If you are used to the Dominator or you know the ergonomics of the Dominator, you will probably have a good time with the counter sniper. I do recommend trying it out again. It's a very consistent one-tap to devastators in the head. Although you could do that before, it had to be in fairly close range. You can now do that at even longer ranges because they gave it even a damage buff on top of that. It is a definite must-try for the patch, especially for bot players. The regular diligence, I haven't really noticed any difference. Yes, it's always nice to get more damage, but I'm not sure about where or what breakpoints we're really hitting with this new damage. Do let me know in the comments down below if you've noticed what it's killing better after the patch. I'm not complaining about more damage on it. It's nice that DMRs are just getting more love, but I'm not sure what exactly it's doing. It's still 2-taps devastators, and for the most part, it was 1-tapping or 2-tapping most bugs already, so hard to say. The Redeemer increased recoil is a bit unfortunate to see, but it's understandable when you realize the Redeemer really just was the best primary by some margin. It almost had stats on par with some primaries. I'm looking at you, Liberators. I understand it. So as long as you do some tap firing and you're willing to or even do a little bit of crouch firing, you won't even notice this change. So I highly recommend looking into it. You can still use it just fine, but we're going to be moving into the Peacemaker, which got a nice buff, and you might be looking at that now. The extra damage is really pleasant surprise. To some extent, I almost forgot this weapon existed at times. It feels good. It feels good in bugs and bot missions. I do hope they give it more mags in the future. It only has 5 backup mags. I believe a magazine size of 15. So as far as raw damage output, it has a lot less damage than the Redeemer overall, which is kind of unfortunate. So I hope that they give the Peacemakers some more ammo reserves in the future. That would absolutely help it compete with the Redeemer. Senator, what can I say? It's finally here. We got the speed loader. It feels so much better for bot missions in particular. You know, you can actually take out so many devastators before needing to reload, especially if you're hitting those 1-taps, and then you can just reload significantly faster with the speed loader. It has a nice animation tied to it. If you hold R for 5 seconds, nice little Easter egg. It spins in the finger. It looks sick. The extra damage is welcomed, but I still hope, these are my wishes for the Senator. I do hope that it gets a better sight, first off, and I also hope that in the future, we can get a better ammo economy for it. It does not get much of its reserves back on a big yellow brick from a resupply, and it gets even less back from the bricks on the ground. So that is definitely holding it back to some extent. You're not going to be able to use this a ton. It's nice that it has all these buffs, but I want to see more. I want to be able to use the Senator even more. Dagger, just like the Scythe, I wouldn't put in troll tier anymore. It's definitely killing things, but it suffers from just overheating way too fast. It has unlimited ammo if you don't overheat it, which is cool, but that's kind of where it ends. I wouldn't necessarily recommend using the weapon still. It's gone up from troll tier, but I would not really recommend someone use it. Give it a try, but it's mostly for like those old laser builds and stuff like that if you're just trying to have some fun. The new Liberator buff goes up 11%, not bad, but it's not competing with the Sickle just yet. It still needs a little bit more, or the Sickle needs to be brought down a little bit more. Hard to say which. You can tell me in the comments which one you would prefer. A nice little hidden increase, though, is the Stalwart got a buff, and many people are theorizing that the Stalwart and the Liberator possibly have similar bullet characteristics and so on and so forth, and damage characteristics. So the Stalwart is now killing certain enemies, including the Brute Commanders, in significantly less shots than it once did to the head. So maybe there's something going on there. Not exactly sure. Still need to look into that, but Stalwart maybe having a little bit of an increase as well. Liberator Concussive. It's great that they increase the damage, but I don't think this weapon really has a place other than in lower difficulty missions for people that are getting overrun by enemies. It's cool to be able to push back enemies, but in the grand scheme of things, I would much rather just the enemy die rather than waste the shots and the time to push them back. I could see someone maybe liking this, but I gotta put it in like that same C tier. Like, it's not fantastic. Dominator, I'd be hard pressed to notice the difference. I've shot a lot of things with it. It's still 2 shots to the leg of a Devastator, 1 shot to the faceplate, still 2 shots to a Brute Commander's head, still 2 to 3 shots to a Bile Spewer's head. A little bit of variance there, but for the most part, 2 to 3 shots. Honestly, if they didn't say that they decreased it, I think the community wouldn't even notice. I don't think I've found a situation where it is taking an extra shot. Maybe it's going to take an extra shot for like a tank's radiator or a laser cannon's turret or obviously a factory strider's belly, but I don't know where it's really being affected other than in those situations. Guard Dog Rover decreased damage by 30%. Definitely a sad one to some extent because I really like using it, but I understand that it was getting used a ton and it was super effective at times, almost too effective when in regards to like an ad clearing weapon like the Stalwart. There is a nice little cherry on top though. You're definitely get killed by it less because it's doing less damage. It's still very usable. I was using it all day today and had no problems just killing whole hunter hordes as they follow me. I could easily still recommend using it, but you know, it's definitely going to slip down a little bit in its ranking. Ballistic Guard Dog increases damage a little bit, but that wasn't really the problem of the Ballistic Guard Dog. Its problem is that it's not medium pen. Give it medium pen. It has a stupidly small magazine, so it spends way more time reloading on your back than actually shooting. And honestly, it picks some dumb targets. I wish it would spend its time shooting, you know, things other than just, you know, scavengers around me, because it typically just overkills them. Like, it'll take extra shots to kill a scavenger for some reason, and I don't know why. Burning damage reduction is a small nerf to mostly the Incendiary Breaker. I am a bit surprised, but I knew this was going to happen because they had admitted that they overbuffed incendiary damage, not knowing about the dot damage bug. Still in the game, by the way. They are working on it. Apparently in the next patch, it will be fixed. They've already told us that. So it takes more than just 1 pellet to kill a hunter now, on host or non-host. Hunter's not affected by the dot damage bug, by the way. So it'll take maybe like 2 or 3 pellets plus the burn tick to kill a hunter now. Small nerf, but the Incendiary Breaker is still the ultimate hunter killer in the game. Absolutely. So Tesla Tower, I barely need to mention it. Really no change. You're not really using this to tank tier 1 enemies. It should be killing tier 1 enemies reliably. And yeah, it'll be able to tank maybe like a Bile Spewer or more Bile Spewers spitting at it, or maybe a couple more shots from some lasers in a bot mission. But you're not going to be using the Tesla Tower in tier 9s for the most part. There's too many chargers and too many Bile Titans that just walk over to it and insta-kill it, unfortunately. And in bot missions, you have Rocket Devastators firing at it from 100 meters away. They hate those things. Airburst Rocket Launcher, after the initial reaction, which was very negative because it was constantly team killing us, it had a couple unique things that were going on. So it could one-shot a Fabricator from any angle. The initial rocket, as long as it hits the Fabricator, can kill a Fabricator, which is cool. It will compete with the Spear on Blitz missions because of that. But now that they've fixed the proximity radius and it just blowing up on the most random things, or proximity detonating on the most random things, it feels way more usable. And it's fairly useful. I mean fairly useful because I feel like most people that are going to be doing ad clear are mostly going to be bringing a grenade launcher or something to that effect. But it is nice for long-range patrol killing. And that's how I would classify this weapon. I don't recommend it as anti-air. I know the video in game says it's good at killing those shriekers. I don't recommend using it for that purpose. That's a lot of ammunition, especially when you take so long to reload the weapon. It's mostly for like, hey, I just saw a patrol spawn in the distance. I want to kill that, or at least heavily like damage that patrol. It's great for that. As far as like Hulks and tanks and Chargers and Battle Titans, it can damage them, but it's not a reliable way to take it out. It's no Quasar, it's no AMR, it's no autocannon, but it's decent. It can do it. All right. Hulks have less stagger, or they get staggered less often, but you don't really notice it in regular gameplay unless you're an arc thrower main. It's a real sad day for arc throwers. Unfortunately, the arc thrower does not stagger them at all anymore from my testing. It used to stagger on every single bolt. Now it doesn't, which is really sad for the arc thrower. Luna has decided to join us for this next part. I think she just got lonely, so we'll do some of it with the cat on my shoulder. Scout Strider Riders now are less vulnerable to explosions. This is noticeable if you're shooting at the top half of most Scout Striders, if you can't actually see the rider. What I recommend is shooting lower, closer to where the legs are. Scorcher is still fine, autocannon is still fine, Eruptor is still fine. You can very easily one-shot with a lot of those weapons, Scorcher taking a couple more, but it's still very effective versus Scout Striders. Many would probably not even notice the difference. Fog Generators' health have more health and armor. Basically, Fog Generators are Spore Spewers in bug missions, and they now have the same health and armor as Shrieker Dens. Okay? So you need medium plus pen, and for example, 9 shots of an autocannon. I do like the change overall. It is nice to have Spore Spewers actually be like somewhat intimidating now, because if you get stuck in a Spore Spewer, it's very hard to see, and it's going to be very scary. So taking them out of range will not be a big problem, but if you start your mission in the middle of a Spore Spewer, it's definitely going to be a very scary start, which I like. And that pairs well with the new Stalker changes. Stalkers are now absolutely invisible, and they are very hard to see, especially when there's a lot of volumetrics on screen. It's crazy. It's actually a horror game. Stalkers are actually way harder to notice. It's awesome. Next, going into enemy patrols. This had a lot of drama when the patch notes first launched, but they've now clarified what they meant. It's basically there's a linear reaction to how many players are in the lobby. If there's only 1 player, you have 1/4 the amount of patrols compared to 4 players. If you have 2, you have half. If you have 3, you have 3/4. If you have 4 players, you have the max amount of patrols. This is a difficulty increase to solo divers, but I believe that most solo divers will like this change because you're solo diving for the challenge, and now there's more of it. For those that are looking to just chill and solo, I'm sorry, you're probably going to have to end up turning down the difficulty, but for the people that are looking for a challenge, the challenge of solo diving, hey, they're giving it to you. They've just added a new mission. The Raise the Flag mission is now a mission that you can find, I think, throughout the difficulties. You can even find it on Tier 9 Helldive. On Helldive, you're raising 3 flags throughout the map. Love it. It spawns enemies. Music plays. It's great. Good change. Been asking for a while. It's awesome. It's awesome. I love it. They've now fixed the superior packing methodology ship module, which will definitely change how you play with a lot of support weapons. You're going to have a lot more ammo available. For those who don't remember what that is, it's your support weapons gain max reserves when you resupply. There's a bit of a caveat with that. It does not apply to if you're picking up a dropped weapon or someone else's weapon. So if you pick up some MG43 during the match, that doesn't get resupplied. Also, it doesn't apply to supply backpacks. I was a little sad to notice that, but I understand the supply backpack would be broken if it did apply to that as well, because you're already getting double ammo reserves because of it. They finally fixed implosion. Your explosive weapons will no longer pull you in. They will now push you out. So if you shoot an autocannon too close to a Hulk, you won't be sucked in below their feet and then they one-shot you. When you're using the Eruptor, you're not going to get pulled in to all the enemies that are about to kill you, or pulled off of a cliff if you accidentally shoot in front of you. It's fantastic. I'm glad they fixed it. It was getting very annoying with all the new explosive weapons. Unfortunately, no proper spear fix just yet. Hopefully in the next patch. We've seen some devs talking about how they couldn't fit it in, unfortunately, with this one. Absolutely sucks. But at least for the spear, they did add a new staged reload to it. So the reload is less cumbersome, especially when you're in combat. So if you get interrupted, You don't have to pull out the old shell again and again and again and again, which is great. Lowering the overall reload if you think about it. Last but not least that I want to mention here, Auto Mantle. You can now disable Auto Mantle, and you can then press a keybind to mantle when you want. Fantastic change. You no longer have to run up to a resupply and mantle it over and over again, or accidentally mantle over a rock when you didn't want to, getting killed by a charger in the process. It's fantastic. I'm so happy they changed that. All right, YouTube, that was my rundown of the patch notes so far that I've noticed. It was a really solid patch overall. There's definitely some choice changes that I wish they went a little bit farther on with buffing certain weapons, or just some weapons just weren't touched. I'm hoping in the future we can see those. I understand people's frustration with the Quasar being nerfed, but I think in the grand scheme of things, you will still be using the Quasar, but it opens the door for other AT weapons. The Eruptor changes, although look very significant. I was using it all day today. I still was slaying with it. You'll just need to find some ammo a little bit more often. If you guys are wondering about my rankings and where I'd rank things, we will be doing updated tier lists in the near future. So keep an eye out on that. We'll be doing a stratagem tier lists for both bugs and bots first, and then we'll be doing a weapon tier list for both bugs and bots as soon as the new War Bond releases next week. It comes out on May 9th, so that means we'll probably be starting the tier list on like the 10th or 11th as soon as I can get a good handle on the new weapons. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, though. Please do let me know what you guys thought about the patch yourself. I'd love to hear your feedback. I always love seeing what you guys have to think. Love answering your questions, or just like talking to you guys about the patch. So do consider dropping a comment down below. Or if you'd like to talk to me live, I'm live almost every single day streaming Helldivers on Twitch. Do check out the stream. It's 1:30 a.m. EST to about 9 or 10 a.m. EST. Today we were doing a much longer stream so we can record this video and get it out to you guys. But hope you guys enjoyed the video. Like, comment, subscribe, share the video. Check out the Discord. I have a lot of my findings, and just in general, we have a great LFG in there. Do check it out. Much love, YouTube. Bye. I'm gonna say goodbye. Good kitten.